Good morning, everyone. I'm Mrs. Brown. For those of you who don't know, I'm one of the Math 7 teachers, and today I'll be presenting our video lesson on area polygons. Today's lesson will be review for most of you, but what I really want to focus on today is making sure that you write the area formulas and you know how to substitute values into the formulas. I will be doing 4 examples for you, and I'd like your work today on your worksheet to mirror the work that I'm showing you on these examples. So let's get started. The first one that we're going to look at is the area of a square, and you'll notice on this example that I have 2 different versions of the formula. The reason I have 2 versions is sometimes in a square we will just say base times height like we would for a rectangle, but since both of those 2 measures happen to be the same, that's what makes it a square, we could just call it side times side or side squared. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the side squared version of the formula. Our example is a square that has the length of the side 4.7 feet. So my first step is to go ahead and write the formula down with the letters. Okay, and then my second step is going to be to substitute in the values or the numbers from the figure into the formula. So in this case, it's going to be 4.7 times 4.7. That's side squared. And then lastly, I can use my calculator to do that multiplication, but I would get 22.09 feet squared. One of the things I want to make sure I do is include my units, and units for area are always going to be square units. Okay, so my next example is a parallelogram, and a parallelogram it's just like a rectangle that's been sort of tilted over on its side. You'll notice that sometimes the height in the parallelogram can be inside the figure, or the example I'm going to do, the height is outside, but it's still the distance between the 2 parallel sides. So the formula for a parallelogram is base times height, just like a rectangle. And first step for our work is to go ahead and write the formula down with the letters. And then our second step is going to be to go ahead and write the formula down with the numbers from the figure. So in this case, I have 12 is my base and 8 is my height. So I'm going to put in 12 for B and 8 for H. And then I'm going to go ahead and multiply once again using a calculator if I need to help me out. And I get the area is 96 yards squared. So that is the example for a parallelogram. Okay, next up is a triangle. You'll notice on the examples with the formula, I have a couple different versions of a triangle. The first one on the top is an example of a right triangle, and that means it has a right angle, and it also means that the height actually is one of the sides. Okay, and then the second example here is called an acute triangle. That means all of its angles are less than 90 degrees. And you'll notice that the height is inside the triangle. The example that I'm going to be working out for you is an obtuse triangle. And that's an example where the height is actually outside the triangle. So that would be the height right there. 2 versions of the formula. One of them has the 1/2 out in front, 1/2 base times height, or like half of a rectangle. And the other one, instead of multiplying by 1/2, it just says divide by 2. And either one of those versions will work. You decide which one makes more sense to you. My work for this example is going to use the base times height divided by 2. So my first step is to write the formula with the letters. And then my second step is to substitute in the values from the figure. So I want to put in 4 for the base and 9 for the height. And then that becomes 4 times 9 divided by 2. I'm going to show that multiplication step on the top of the fraction before I do the dividing. And then last but not least, I do 36 divided by 2. I get 18. And I make sure that I have my units as feet squared. Okay, the last example I want to work out for you is a trapezoid. A trapezoid is a figure that has 2 pairs of parallel sides. They're called base 1 and base 2. And then the height is the distance between those 2 sides. Once again, just like the triangle, I have 2 versions of the formula. One of them has the 1/2 out in front, and the other one is showing that you're dividing by 2. So I want you to think like if you take half of a number, that's the same thing as cutting it in half or dividing by 2. You can also, when you enter in 1/2 on your calculator, you could use the decimal form of that, which is 0.5. Okay, so over here in my example, you notice that my trapezoid has been rotated sideways so that my parallel sides are actually going up and down versus across left to right. So this would be your base 1 and base 2, and your height is that distance between the two bases. My first step is to write the formula with the letters. I'm going to use the 1/2 times height times the sum of the bases. Second step is to go ahead and substitute in those values. I know the height is 5, and base 1 and base 2 are 4 and 6. And then I'm going to use PEMDAS to evaluate. So the first thing I want to do is add the 6 and the 4 inside the parentheses. And then my second step is, just so I can do it mentally, I just said, let me just multiply the 5 times 10 and get 50. And then I can do the half. Half of 50 is 25. So like the previous examples, make sure you include your units squared. Okay, so good luck with your work. Know that there are some bonus problems at the end of your assignment, and there will be a video demonstrating how you can solve those irregular shapes if you care to challenge yourself a little bit further. Okay, good luck and stay safe.